John Hook's Newsmaker starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker. The government shutdown, ICE raids, Middle East ceasefire, so much going on. We're going to hear tonight from two Arizona members of Congress. Republican Juan-Ciscomani will join me in the second half of the program, but we begin with Democrat Congresswoman Yassamin-Ansari, who represents South and West Phoenix and downtown Phoenix. Congresswoman, thanks for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I would ask you what you're doing right now. We've got a government shutdown, and I don't see a quick path out of this. Do you?
You know, there could be a path out of this if Republicans were actually here to work. Democrats in Congress and in the Senate are here in Washington, D.C., have been for 2 weeks now, working, ready to negotiate to fix the healthcare crisis that Republicans have created and to reopen the government as soon as possible. And it is the second week that the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has told his members to stay home, stay on vacation. And this is after a long August recess where we then came back to just 1 week of work. This is a very fixable situation, John. Couple of months ago, Republicans voted to rip healthcare away from 17 million Americans. That means rural hospitals as well as community health centers are, if not already, at risk of closing. The Affordable Care Act tax credits are set to expire and open enrollment begins November 1st. That means millions of Americans across the country, tens of thousands of Arizonans, are starting to get notified by their insurance companies that their premiums are either doubling or in some cases worse. If you're an older American, that could be worse. This is an urgent problem. There's a reason Republican members of Congress are finally starting to speak up. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying Republicans have no plan to fix this and they should be here working. Congressman Kevin Kiley of California saying just yesterday that it's outrageous that Mike Johnson has sent people home. October 15th is the deadline for paychecks, and they should be here at the bare minimum to work on policy to make sure that people get paid.
And that seems to be maybe the drop dead day when the pain starts to become inflicted with paychecks on October 15th. That might be the clarion moment where everybody comes together. Let's break down this situation with the health care subsidies. This is the Affordable Care Act. The Republicans are arguing that the clean CR, a clean continuing resolution, would keep the government running. And they're saying, let's get that done, and then we'll talk about health care. Why is that not an option, and why did you wind all that into the government shutdown?
Open enrollment, as I said, begins on November 1st. Insurance companies have already started planning to increase their premiums because of the votes and the decisions that the Republicans have made. There is no extra time to kick the can down the road. Now is the time to work on this issue because it's a crisis. The healthcare system in the United States of America already is so severely broken that many people are one paycheck away from losing their homes, and in many cases that becomes a medical emergency. And again, if Republicans were serious, then Donald Trump would be taking the time to negotiate. He personally has not spent more than 1 hour on this issue in a room with leadership from both parties to talk about solutions. That is an abdication of responsibility. And the fact that people like Juan-Ciscomani are at home, focused on tweeting at our two senators who are here working is unacceptable to me, and it should be unacceptable to every single Arizonan.
Now, you guys, the Democrats under President Biden, as part of the American Rescue Act, I guess it was called, the American Rescue Plan, you guys added these subsidies to make the Affordable Care Act to kind of cover the gap. That was a 2-year deal. It expires in 2025. That's why we're up against this deadline. But those were passed during COVID. So should that be looked at as a permanent thing, or is that just a temporary stopgap? And extending them, you know, that people are going to say, well, maybe we need to dive back into the Affordable Care Act and fix that. That just adding on more subsidies, because healthcare is becoming more expensive, people are paying more, the insurance companies are getting wealthy off this, but the care is not exactly great. And we're talking about 24 million people, about 7% of America.
John, I would like nothing more than to work across the aisle and with any member of Congress who wants to fix our healthcare system. There's no question the entire system is broken. I support Medicare for all and universal healthcare. I think in the richest country in the world, nobody should fear that they could lose their home because of an unexpected medical emergency. That's my view. But right now, in this moment in time, we are at an urgent breaking point, and most Americans will be harmed and will see their insurance premiums go up, or they may lose coverage altogether if we do not extend these subsidies.
So why not handle
2017, if I could just finish, the other temporary policy was supposed to be the Trump tax breaks for the wealthiest Americans in this country. But Republicans chose a couple of months ago in the reconciliation bill to extend those 2017 tax cuts to give tax breaks to billionaires and the richest people in the United States of America while doing nothing to make healthcare more affordable.
But the Obamacare subsidies that you're talking about also line the pockets of wealthy people who are able to get those subsidies and probably don't need them.
The subsidies are a matter of life and death for many Americans. 24 million Americans rely on them. I have heard from teachers in my district who say that they already pay half of their salaries on their health insurance, and they rely on the Affordable Care Act tax credits. There are more people who rely on these ACA tax credits in Republican districts than there are in Democratic districts. We're all part of the same system. So even if you don't rely on these tax credits, when somebody else's premiums are going to go up, your premiums could go up as well. Or some people could lose insurance altogether. We're going to see rural hospitals and community health centers close, reducing access for so many in underserved communities. We all are part of this system.
Back to square one, and this is, I guess, about leverage. The CR would have kept the government running. You vote for that, you keep the government running, and then you negotiate health care separate and apart. Why was that not workable?
Completely disagree. This was not a clean continuing resolution. That is a trick. And at no point this year that I've been in Congress have Republicans been fair and honest negotiating partners. They have allowed the president to completely dismantle federal agencies that were authorized and approved by Congress. He's broken the law every single day. So, quite frankly, Democrats in Congress do not trust Republicans to negotiate. They do not trust that, we can just kick the healthcare can down the road. My constituents have been loud and clear with me that they believe that the healthcare crisis is the most important issue in this moment, that we need to fight like hell to protect healthcare and to extend these tax credits and subsidies so that people don't lose their insurance, and we have to do it now. So that's why this is so important, and that's why you are starting to see cracks within the Republican Party.
Okay, let's move on. I want to get your take on the ICE raids that are happening around the country. What do you make of that?
I think that ICE is completely out of control. The president and Stephen Miller have unfortunately enacted an immigration enforcement policy around the country that is exceedingly violent, that is breaking all norms. You have masked ICE agents terrorizing communities, including in Phoenix, Arizona. There have been many, many cases where they have detained U.S. citizens, green card holders. They have gone after the wrong people. They're separating families. They are completely a rogue agency emboldened by Stephen Miller, who has set quotas of wanting to deport 3 million people each and every year. And in addition to the ICE raids themselves, we have private prison companies like CoreCivic and Geo Group that are making record profits because while Republicans ripped away health care from Americans, they handed that money over not just to billionaires, but to these private prison companies to the tune of $40 billion so that they can expand detention center capacity around the country.
Okay, I've got to ask you, you are the first American-Iranian member of Congress. So first your take on the Iranian airstrikes a couple of months ago. What did you make of that? Was that a good move, bad move? What's your take?
I believe that the Islamic Republic regime in Iran should never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. the way the operation was conducted, we still do not have clear picture on what the impacts were. I always believe that for a president to take military action against another country, that needs to be authorized by Congress, and that never happened. And also, Congress needs to be briefed. And it wasn't until after the fact that we ended up getting an intelligence briefing. And we left that briefing very unclear about whether or not the Iranian nuclear program was delayed for a substantial period of time. I hope that the regime changes. I think we need to work through diplomatic means, which is actually happening right now, to negotiate a new nuclear deal to prevent the country from having nuclear weapons in the long term, and also end their support of terrorist organizations in other countries.
And finally, are you optimistic that this plan to end the war in Gaza will hold a ceasefire?
I'm hopeful. You know, I will give credit where credit is due. I think that this is a big breakthrough to have both Hamas and Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel agree to a ceasefire deal, an agreement around the release of all remaining hostages, and a long-term plan for peace is a huge deal. And we should all be grateful that the deal is moving in the right direction. I think moving forward, enforcement and accountability is going to be extremely important. The United States will continue to have to play a major role in this. There's obviously zero trust between the two parties. And so the United States' leadership in this moving forward will be extremely important. And long term, you know, we have to have a two-state solution so that Israelis and Palestinians who deserve human rights and dignity can have the opportunity to live freely and peacefully and with dignity side by side with equal measures.
Congresswoman Yassamin-Ansari, we appreciate your time, and we will have you back, and thank you and good luck, and hopefully you're back to work soon.
Thank you, John.
Good
Thanks.
to see you.
Have a great night.
Yep, you too. And next on Newsmaker, the Republican perspective, Arizona Congressman Juan-Ciscomani, next on Newsmaker. Welcome back to Newsmaker. We heard from Yassamin-Ansari, Democrat representative in Congress from Phoenix. Equal time now for the Republicans. Juan-Ciscomani represents southeastern Arizona, kind enough to join me. Great to see you.
Great to see you, John. Thank you.
Okay, the government shutdown, if you listen to Congresswoman Ansari earlier, I mean, she's putting this on you guys. And you guys are saying, pass the continuing resolution to keep the government open, and we'll negotiate these Obama ACA subsidies that are going to run out. We'll do that later. Is that kind of the long and short of it?
Well, listen, the Democrats can point the finger all they want and leave it up for interpretation, but these are the facts. We voted to keep the government open. They voted to shut the government down. Whether they want to justify why they did that, and if they have reasons to do that, that can be a second point of conversation. But to your first one, who caused this shutdown? Democrats caused this shutdown. There is no question about it. Just the voting record shows it. We voted for the keeping it open. They voted to shut the government down. And we only need a majority in the House to keep it open. But in the Senate, we need 60 votes to keep it open. And we haven't found 7 Democrats that are willing to cross their party line, come over and do the right thing and keep the government open, including our 2 senators, Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego, who continue to vote to keep the government shut down. They can have a list of demands. Some we're able to look at, others are outrageous and we cannot look at them. But one of the ones regarding health, we've been open to have those conversations. Matter of fact, I signed on to a bill before the shutdown to extend the ACA subsidies for another year to make sure that we don't pull the rug from under people, and we have plenty of time to see what we need to do in this area. So I'm all about extending that piece of it and having that discussion. Now, we need to have that discussion with an open government where our troops are getting paid, Border Patrol agents are getting paid, air traffic controllers are getting paid. So the way the Democrats in Arizona and all across the nation have done it, it's really shameful and bad for business in Arizona, but bad for our troops and our national security.
If you were sitting on their side of the aisle, I'm sure that they are using the shutdown as a pressure point to try to get you to the table to extend these Obama subsidies that they're saying the sky's going to fall if they don't get done. But the problem with Obamacare is, and I think it's a fairly universal feeling, it has not worked well. Premiums have gone up. Healthcare has not improved. And I think, geez, when I look at this, it's unbelievable. You know, it was supposed to bend the curve down, but instead costs have spiraled and premiums for individual market plans have doubled. Is it time to revisit the Affordable Care Act and say we need to remake this thing? Because the only ones benefiting are the insurance companies.
A lot of truth in those statements. The premiums have gone up, care hasn't improved. So when we look at all that and we see the amount of people that have signed up legally and fair to this program, and now their rates are about to go up even higher, that makes sense for everyone that it's actually effective. Now let's not forget that this expiration date that we're looking at the end of this year, that was set into policy by the Democrats themselves. They set this to expire because that was part of the deal.
And they did it during COVID.
And they did during COVID. So you've got all this that was pushed through in that era for this time. So we knew this deadline was coming all along. And now all of a sudden they try to hang this on this shutdown and try to make that the reason forward, when it's far beyond that. Listen, speaking of healthcare, we have a $50 billion fund for rural hospitals in the Working Class Family Tax Cuts Act. And these are the kind of things that they want to wipe away from. Increase spending back to 1.5 trillion additional spending. Do away with the Medicaid safeguards that we put in place so we can protect it for single moms and those with disabilities. All these things that are regular checks and background and employment verification, all these things that we put in place, it's a completely clean CR that they voted for, and so did I, last year when President Biden was in the White House. Now they don't want to pass it under President Trump because they want to shut it down out of politics. That should be the case.
Can you clear something up, Congressman? This idea that illegals would be, again, able to, we would be essentially covering some of their medical costs, and the president has said that's just not going to work. As I read it, the Democrats want to repeal a section of that would open the door for certain states, blue states, to again get federal Medicaid funding to cover certain medical expenses for illegals. That's a non-starter for you guys, right?
That is a non-starter. That was one of the big pieces that we implemented to be able to save money on Medicaid so that those people that are supposed to be on it are able to receive it. Of course, the traditional population like single moms and those with disabilities and in poverty, but also the extended population that in Arizona we extended to that shortly after this whole thing passed. Also making sure that if people that are here not with a legal status are not able to receive these benefits. And the Democrats claim that it's not about that no one's receiving them right now, and they'll continue to peddle and say those lies. But if you look at that section that you're mentioning, it's on the Mike Johnson's page and a lot of our websites as well, the exact section that they want to repeal that opens up the door for these services to be provided to people that are not legally, which takes away from our citizens' services and benefits.
Okay, checks will stop going out on the 15th of October. Is that kind of becoming the moment where everybody's going to get sober, figuratively, it could be literally, and come to the table and say we got to pass the CR and open the government?
There are certain dates that I think will be strong pressure points. One of the ones that I've been keeping track of is definitely that one, the 15th, where our troops get paid again. So if our troops start missing payments, you're talking about junior enlisted personnel here that they live paycheck to paycheck. Many of them are supporting young families that now are required to come to work, provide a service to our nation of protecting us, and going home without a paycheck. A group that still does, you know who? Members of Congress.
Yep.
Members of Congress still get paid unless you request personally to withhold your own pay, which I did in out of principle, in solidarity with all the federal employees that are not getting paid. However, our two senators Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego did not do that, and Senator Gallego went as far as saying that he couldn't afford it because of his mortgage, and he has 3 kids. Well, a lot of these federal employees also have mortgages and 3 kids. He's voting to shut the government down while not joining them in withholding his pay. I think that's shameful, but also a very important one. Here in Arizona and across the nation is the WIC payment for women and children in need. That money is geared to run out towards the end of this week, early next week. That also is very concerning because now we have families depending on these funds.
Now, didn't the president, Congressman, didn't the President Trump said he was going to use tariff money to pay for WIC to keep it going? Is that still workable?
That is, they dug deep into this rule from the 1930s when they can take receipts from customs as they coming across, food coming across the border, and they're able to redirect some of that money. This is out of the benevolence of the White House of saying, listen, the Democrats are playing games with this, but we're gonna work on keeping every part possible open, including the funding of the WIC program.
Okay,
so,
let me pivot if we can to ICE.
Sure.
And your family, you came over from Mexico, became a citizen of this country. You serve in Congress now. It's the American dream. I've got to get your take because you live in a fairly Hispanic district in southeastern Arizona. You've got a pretty big makeup of Hispanics there. How are the ICE raids going over in your district?
I haven't seen any report of a specific ICE raid that is happening here in the way that it's happening in other parts of the country. We have issues on the border, on the security side. We had them more prevalent under the Biden administration that have pretty much disappeared under the Trump administration. We feel a lot safer now with Border Patrol being fully available and empowered to do their job. We're grateful for the officers in ICE and CBP and Border Patrol that continue to do their job and their work, who, by the way, again, they're not getting paid right now to keep us safe. But you've got pockets of people all across the nation that are here illegally and they're committing crimes, and those are the people that ICE is mainly targeting. Now, if someone's here illegally and they're part of this community, that also gets impacted, even if they hadn't committed a crime additional to being in this country illegally. And I think that's kind of some of the stuff that you've seen around the country. Are
you hopeful that this ceasefire in Gaza will hold and that this thing will go forward? How optimistic are you?
I am very optimistic. This is the most that we've been able to see on this issue since I can remember. Being able to bring both sides to the table to preliminarily agree to this first step is a huge deal, especially given the incidents of just the anniversary of two years ago that just recently passed on the 7th of the horrific attacks of Hamas on Israel, unprovoked and completely cruel and horrible. And now for Israel to be able to come to the table and Hamas accepting some of these demands and agreements, I think it's huge that we're to this point, especially with the release of the hostages. I'm very optimistic, and no one could have done it except President Trump.
Before we let you go, Congresswoman Ansari said that the big, beautiful bill was a bunch of tax cuts for the Republicans' friends who were millionaires and billionaires. Is that true?
Well, I don't know a lot of billionaires myself, but I don't think they're living off tips. I don't think they're happy. They would be the ones that this was for when you're talking about overtime. Not a lot of them are working for overtime or concerned about getting a tax break on $6,000 per individual under Social Security. These are all things that impact the middle class, that impact the working class. We're happy about that. Also, for the small businesses and all the deductions, child tax credit for families that are working as well hard and they're having a family and growing kids. I mean, these are all the things that we're helping people, putting more money in people's pockets. Congresswoman Ansari is unfortunately playing politics with this, and anything that has President Trump's name on it, they're going to be opposed to it, which is unfortunate. That's why she, Greg Stanton, Mark Kelly, and Ruben Gallego shut the government down.
Congressman Juan-Ciscomani, good to see you again. I hope you're back to work soon. I'm sure you're probably doing constituent work and
a lot of work.
Yeah,
a lot of work here at home.
Well, we'll see you hopefully back in D.C. soon. Congressman, thank you.
Sir.
Thank you for your time. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, we're back on Newsmaker in just a moment. Thanks as always for watching, and we will see you next week on Newsmaker.